don't need no wine and dine. I want something high class. Like spending my nights at home, romancing the podcast. Take a deeper dive into these movies that are trash. Meet what's in a bookstore, and then we'll smash. Roll call. Todd. Paige. The other guy. Oh yeah, Mikey.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
Wow, I'm Michael Randolph, and that's amazing.
And I'm Todd Schlosser, and I also think it's amazing. And today we watched
Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah. Now, I know that we are on two different coasts, sort of, right? Because Mikey and I are both in Nashville, and Paige, you're in California.
That's correct.
I feel like this is a very good movie for us to do, just because I feel like Mikey and I can give a Southern perspective. And Mikey, you went to school in Alabama, right?
Bro, I went to the Deep South. I went to Mississippi State.
Oh, Mississippi State. Okay.
Which is like the only state worse than Alabama. So, I mean,
if we're ranking them on things like education.
Right.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time in Alabama in college.
Yeah.
Like, I have friends in Alabama. Like, I'm ready to talk about this.
I don't have friends in Alabama, and that is not a brag. I'm just saying I don't. And Mikey, my question is, when you go to your friend's double-wide trailer in Alabama, do they have Confederate flag pillows?
No, thank gosh.
Oh my God! When I saw that in this movie, I was like, "Oof, this did not age well."
See, Todd, if you're from Tennessee, right? You've always been around Tennessee and then West Coast and then back.
Yeah, I was born here, moved to the West Coast, moved back.
Nashville and Tennessee is technically the Mid-South.
That's true, yeah.
I lived for a long time in what they refer to as the Deep South, where this movie takes place.
I did love that in this movie, the gay character that they have mentions that his girlfriend from high school, who is insinuated to be gay as well, moved to Nashville, where we are, to be a softball coach or whatever. I was like, at least they're shouting out Nashville as like the accepting place at the time. I was like, yeah, good on Nashville. Good for us.
I'm so glad we're doing this movie first, because I feel like this movie is part of the reason we started this podcast, because we were trash talking this movie the last time we recorded a podcast.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. It's like, we should do a podcast on romantic comedies because mostly the main characters are the villains.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is a great example. I feel like, and I haven't seen American Psycho, so forgive me, but I feel like this is an American Psycho style movie because we follow the villain the entire time.
Here's what's wild, because this came out when I was in high school, and I saw it in theaters. Girls that I went to high school with were obsessed with this movie. And Reese Witherspoon was at the top of her game. This is right after Legally Blonde. Like, this is peak Witherspoon. And Peak Spoons.
Yes.
And I feel like I did not realize she was the villain until I was an adult. And watching it now, I am astounded that people think of this movie with a nostalgia that is not befitting a villain's arc.
No.
And that, like, growing up, I was like, how did I not understand how shitty she was? Like, this is so terrible.
So when I first saw this movie, I also saw it in theaters, Paige, and I immediately hated her. And I've never loved Patrick Dempsey more. I mean, I loved him as much as I did in Can't Buy Me Love, which is another movie we need to do.
I love that movie.
Same, Mikey, same, but it does not hold up.
It does not.
And we'll get to that. But Patrick Dempsey is legit a saint in this movie.
Yes.
Murphy Brown's a bitch. His mom's horrible, but like he is a saint in this movie. He even has the forethought to not shake the Confederate general's hand because he wants to go into politics. That is like next level thinking immediately. I was so impressed by Patrick Dempsey in this movie.
I actually have an argument for his mother later in the movie.
Oh, I can't wait.
Hear me out. Yeah.
I agree with Paige because his mother was actually right about everything she thought was wrong.
From Jump Street, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the movie makes you think she's a bitch, like, or tries to make you think she's a bitch. Yeah.
Yes. And then at the very end of the movie, and we'll get to it a little bit, she is the only one that basically is like, hey, don't any of you realize Reese Witherspoon's the villain? She's the one person that's like, you evil conniving bitch. And I'm just like, she's right. Like, this is
She
no
is
lies.
super manipulative. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what my mom would do if someone did that to me at the altar.
Oh man, I'd love to see your mom like.
There's so much to unpack here.
Well, yeah. Let's start with the fact that he's going to be at the altar, Mikey. There are some things you're going to have to work through before we. Oh wait, Paige, were you talking about the movie? My bad. I thought we were going to address the Mikey concerns.
No. I was talking about Mikey making it to the altar and then his mother punching his future wife.
So maybe we should just get into this fucking movie because we have a lot to talk about.
So we start out this movie with two children running on a beach during a lightning storm.
Okay, so you know immediately that these kids are A, dumb, B, too young to like start kissing, right? They're like 8 and 10. They're not.
I was too distracted by the fact that it's Dakota Fanning.
Oh yeah, like early DF.
Early Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
8 and 10, they're working full time in Alabama already.
Oh man. But this is where we get introduced to the idea that when lightning strikes sand, it makes this cool glass sculpture.
Right.
Is this true?
I have no idea.
Who cares,
Didn't
Mikey?
even bother to look it up.
I know.
I'm going to assume it's true. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it predicates this idea that, like, it happens often enough for people to know about it. And then later in the movie, we find that people are actively trying to make it happen. But so they run over to where lightning has struck the sand because they're idiots. And they're like, well, lightning never strikes the same place twice. And then they get hit by lightning. This movie starts with children being hit by lightning.
I will argue that this movie starts with children dying, and the rest of it is a Jacob's Ladder situation as they both lay in the sand dying back in 1992.
Yes.
I felt like that lightning was a good 10 feet away from where they were standing.
No, it hits them. It
hits them and blows them apart.
Yes, Mikey, I feel like you weren't watching the scene.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a metaphor.
For their first kiss.
Yes,
Boom.
for their first kiss.
Yes,
And this
it is.
idea that, like, lightning doesn't strike twice, but this is a force so powerful it will destroy us. Which is fucking dark for the first scene of a movie.
Yeah, and I'll say this, lightning always strikes the same place twice. That's why lightning poles exist.
Lightning rods is the correct terminology there.
You're going to bust my balls over rods and poles, Mikey.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to my lightning pole.
I was gonna say,
We were forgetting the most important part of that scene is I'm gonna marry you so I can kiss you all the time.
whenever I want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why would you want to marry me so I can kiss you whenever I want? Like, consent doesn't exist. Which is
I mean,
weird stance to take, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, Paige, you're married. Do you get to kiss your husband whenever you want now?
Yeah, pretty much actually though. Yeah. I've never done it and had him been like, stop. So yeah. I should also note that my husband is from the part of East Texas that's Louisiana. So like I got some Southern in the mix as well.
All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
does he like this movie?
Oh God, no.
as a Southerner, I hate this movie so
Yeah.
much.
Here's what's terrible. I grew up West Coast media elite, and
Nice.
I think that's why I liked this movie when I was younger, because it endeavors to paint liberal elites as quote unquote better than.
Yeah.
And it fails. It fails badly. But now watching this movie as a grown up, I'm like, if I acted like this when I went home to meet Jake's family, I'm a terrible person. Who would act that way? Who would treat anyone that way? Like, she acts. I can't. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll
further,
have to
but,
get into
like,
it. Yeah.
So the next shot is her in New York as if she didn't die in childhood. And she's getting ready for a fashion show.
Her own fashion show, Paige.
Her own fashion show.
Yeah.
And she's asleep on the table, which I think is them making us think that she was dreaming about dead children. Again,
She was dreaming about the time
horrifying.
she died? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's like, remember that time?
Yeah.
I now have neurological disorders from being hit by lightning.
I'm going to tell you guys, I've never seen this movie.
What?
You had never
This
seen
is the
this
first time
movie?
you've seen this movie?
I had not seen this movie. So, yeah.
Wow.
I watched it as an adult and I was like, wow, who would love these people?
Teenagers who don't understand relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a movie made for 16-year-old girls. So she's dreaming about dead children. She wakes up suddenly, and one of her assistants is like, your accent gets really strong when you're asleep, which means that she was actively sleeping on this table being like, y'all, them children is dead. And like, no one thought that was weird.
In my mind, all they were hearing was like her side of the conversation. So she was like saying the lines that Dakota Fanning was in the last scene. So she heard like, why you want to marry me for and stuff like that.
And then she'd be like, what about lightning will strike here? Why do you want to marry me? That's a weird out of context.
Yeah. Especially if she ended it with like, y'all, we're dead. We're dead. So she wakes up. She doesn't have an accent and she's speaking to them, or at least not a discernible one.
It's
really.
a little Southern. It's not nearly as bad as it gets when she puts it on. And Reese Witherspoon's from the South. So like it is pretty authentic. It does get more and more Southern as the movie goes on, but I think that was a directorial choice.
Yeah, I think there's also a thing where when you spend time with people who have that level of an accent, you start to gain one.
When I go back to Mississippi and stuff, the drawl comes out.
I think that has to do more with your Natty Lights that you drink there than your actual Southern accent. But yeah.
Like, what y'all doing?
Well, I mean, okay, so I grew up in the South. Like I should quote unquote have an accent, but I really don't because I don't know. I went to college, I guess, but like I just don't.
No, because you grew up in a city. Cities don't have accents.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like when I lived in San Diego, no one had accents either. But if you drive to like Santee, which is like 15, 20 minutes outside San Diego, they sound...
You might as well have driven to Alabama.
Absolutely. And you see as many Confederate flags.
Yeah, you do.
So it really isn't like a city, or it really isn't like a South versus North thing. It's like a city versus rural thing.
Yeah. I grew up speaking what they call unaccented Pacific American. Thank you. And
you couldn't sound more pretentious if you said the Queen's English.
The Queen's English. I only know because if you're in Los Angeles auditioning for anything and they will try to like define what your natural accent is.
Yeah.
And they were like, where'd you grow up? And I was like, Oakland. And they were like, okay. So when I went to Texas, it took me like 2 days. And by day 3, I was like, y'all, we're going to go to Buc-ee's. And I was like, what is my voice? What is happening? This is coming out of my own face.
You're like shocked. You're like, y'all, ooh, what was that?
Oh, what the? Yes. A ghost. My husband had to talk me out of buying a chip and dip that said, yum, y'all. And I still want it to this day.
I would get down on some yum, y'all with you. I've never had it either,
right?
But that sounds like something I want to put in my mouth.
Right? And anyway, so she only has an accent when she talks about dead children.
Right. Well, and we learn at the show that her name is Melanie Carmichael, and that she was a protege of some other designer, and now he sort of helped her get her own show, and that's what we're witnessing right now. Although I do love that they sort of yada 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 over the show. They're like
100%.
As an audience, don't worry about the show. We're just going to tell you she's successful, but we're not going to show you any of that stuff.
Here's something I noticed watching it this time around that I didn't notice as a teenager or any other time that I watched it. So she's showing at New York Fashion Week. That's fucking huge.
Yeah, that's like the Oscars of Fashion Week.
Yes, that is the Oscars. Her parents are nowhere to be found.
No.
They don't know about it. She has no one else there except her 2 friends.
Her 2 New York friends.
Her 2 New York
friends.
One
of which is her like benefactor guy. Like the guy she works for. Yeah.
Ostensibly one of the biggest moments of her life and career, and none of the people that have known her before the last couple years are there.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad.
Let's talk about this because I feel like a theme of the movie is no one can communicate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Mikey, absolutely. Although I think that's a trope in rom-coms. Like a lot of rom-coms are developed around a premise of misconnections or miscommunications or stuff like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Don't get me wrong. That stuff happens in real life. Like,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, like people are scared to talk about things. People miscommunicate. But she straight up just like didn't tell anyone of her family that she's super famous and rich now.
Well, I mean, when you're a sociopath, you do sort of burn bridges, and then people from your past don't necessarily want to come to your Fashion Week show. So I understand, having seen this movie in hindsight, why no one was there except for her close group of friends from, the past few years,
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, maybe they were embarrassed that she was essentially showing like Banana Republic level clothes at New York Fashion Week.
I wear a lot of Banana Republic. I take offense.
No offense meant, but like they're spanning through like backstage at her show, and I was just like, what is that? Just like a white blouse? Like,
Yeah, she totally revitalized the white blouse game, Paige.
I love when later in the movie someone quotes a review to her and they're like, well, if Women's Wear Daily had called me less than mediocre, and I was like, that review is right.
Yeah. That review is the only one that makes sense in this movie. And that's actually the real Carmichael. I forget his name, but yeah, he's like the one
Bobby
who says,
Ray.
Yeah, Bobby Ray. That's right, Bobby Ray.
So, as someone coming into this movie fresh, I got really confused the first 30 minutes about how her last name changed like 7 times.
Yes.
Yeah, because she was lying.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? It's like, is it Sooner Carmichael? Like, what is her real last name? What's Josh Lucas's last name? I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and just like not think about this.
Yeah.
Because like at the end they throw it up, they're like, Miss Schooner or Miss Carmichael, and I was like, I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment. I don't know what are the.
I honestly don't know if it's just hyphenated. Like, yeah, I mean,
Smeaner Carmichael.
Because she has her maiden name, her fake name, and her married name.
Yeah.
her driver's license is a fucking mess, guys.
We accidentally skipped over one scene that I do think is important. So she's prepping for the show, and then she comes home to her apartment where her beautiful, wonderful fiance has filled the entire apartment with candles and petals. And I have a note because he left a ton of candles just unattended. Like he's gonna burn that apartment down. Mm-hmm. But then also he scattered petals all over her carpet. And I don't know if you guys know this.
It'll stain. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't do that. I've made that mistake. And it was a fun hour after she got home, but the cleanup was a bitch.
We got married at a place that has, this is gonna sound weird, but I promise, very famous carpet. And
Paige, I don't want to hear what you refer to your nethers as. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that's something you keep between you and your hubby.
It's very famous original carpet from the 1960s.
Does it match the drapes?
It does.
I hate you and love you so much, Mikey.
But they have like the supply of it for the world where like you cannot get this carpet anywhere else. So our first meeting for like our wedding, they were like, no flowers. No petals, no nothing. And I was like, I wasn't planning on it, but they were like, I don't care if you think it's cute for a flower girl. They're either fake or they're not here. I was like, damn, okay, shit.
Good Lord, yeah.
And it's because they stained. But yeah, so her fiance in this movie is set up as being wonderful.
And he remains wonderful the entire
movie.
Yeah. I mean, he's no fire marshal, but he means well, right? Like he doesn't know he might burn her place down, but he is loving, right?
Yeah. And I feel like this reminded me a lot of The Notebook. Like, I don't know if you've watched The Notebook recently as an adult, but if you watch it back, you're like, James Marsden is a saint. Like, she is treating him so horribly.
Yeah, I thought you meant it reminded you of The Notebook because this movie also definitely ends in a murder-suicide, but we just don't get to see that. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to the very, very end. But yeah.
When we do The Notebook, I'm going to be so excited.
Oh, yeah. The Notebook's going to come in hard with some hot takes.
So after her show, he's like, we have to go to this thing for my mom, who we find out is the mayor of New York.
Right.
Big deal.
That's a big deal. Internationally famous and important. Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest cities in the U.S. I mean, that's like she's like the mayor for 11 million people or whatever.
And she's painted as this like horrible uppity bitch, but at the same time, I'm like, she's running New York. Like, cut her.
She has a very
break.
intense job.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she quit her TV talk show, Murphy Brown, and then ran for office, and now she's just doing it badass bitch style. Like, I had so much respect for her in this movie.
I like her in this almost as much as I love her in Miss Congeniality, which we should also do.
Oh, yes.
We will definitely do both of those Sandra Bullock vehicles.
So he tells her that she has to meet his mom for this thing. She gets dressed up. She gets in her car and not driving, like a car has picked her up.
It is a limo, yeah.
Patrick Dempsey is pretty loaded in this movie.
He's like a real estate developer. He's like a baby legit Trump. Not like Russian money laundering Trump, but like an actual developer Trump. Yeah.
Who his mother believes will be president someday. And he looks like JFK Jr. So I'm like, yeah, okay.
Okay, I mean.
Yeah, I sort of get it. He's handsome. He's awesome. And he's rich.
Yeah.
Okay, so his mom may be a little rough around the edges, and she's a politician, but she only has his best interests at heart.
This whole movie.
Absolutely,
yes.
Mikey.
Yeah.
And so the limo pulls up to what looks like just like a back door somewhere.
Yeah.
They let her through, and they tell her like, oh, she's not here yet, so just come on inside and wait. And for a hot second, she is not nearly afraid enough. Like,
right.
No,
I was like, she's getting kidnapped. I was like, what is this movie?
I was like, this is now taken.
I literally leaned over to Natalie, who we watched this movie together, and I was like, this reminds me of the scene in Goodfellas where they're about to make Joe Pesci, but he gets murdered.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Like they're like, go ahead and walk in front of us, two white old men, into this dark room.
It just looks like a hallway,
not
like
a good idea.
nondescript hallway, which if you've ever worked in retail, it's every retail hallway.
Yeah, behind the store. Yeah.
The walls are not even really finished. Like, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's like cinder block.
Yes. And so they walk her in, and then they turn on the lights, and we realize that she is in Tiffany's.
Yes. Their engagement ring floor. Because if you've been to Tiffany in New York, it's like a 7-floor thing. Yeah.
Which this movie does not do a good job of demonstrating. They make it look like she's just like off the street into the engagement room.
In the sake of time, they just teleport to the engagement room.
Absolutely,
floor.
yeah.
I mean, it's fine, you guys.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
And there's like 40 staff in there just like, pick your ring. It looked like the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where she had to like pick the Jesus's cup.
This is the ring of a carpenter. Yes.
It's like a wooden ring she's wearing the whole movie.
She chooses a conservatively 2
to 3 carat. Yeah, I mean,
solitaire.
It's like a $60,000
huge.
ring. Yeah.
Easily. And I remember seeing this as a teenager and being like, oh my God, the most romantic thing. And now as an adult, I'm like, everybody's got that ring. Like, I had a weird like cockiness about it where I was just like, she basic.
So my reading of that scene as a kid was like, oh my God, that's so romantic. But now I read it as Patrick Dempsey's lazy and didn't want to pick out a ring for her.
Yes!
Right?
Thank you.
And I was like, he's going to propose in the ring store? That's not super romantic.
Oh,
he was like, you do it.
Yeah, can you just
Like-
pick out your own ring? Because, like, I don't pay enough attention to you in these last 8 months to know what you'd like.
So that's definitely going down on one of the ways I'm going to propose.
is in the ring department.
Yeah.
But it's going to be at Walmart, so it's a different level. It's like
All this cubic zirconia can be yours.
And I'm going to use a white van and just 2 dudes to like kidnap her off the street.
Mikey, I demand you let me be one of those 2 dudes.
Please let me be the salesperson. I'm obsessed with this now. My husband and I had our rings custom made. Which,
nice.
Aw.
yeah, it was one of those things where like we did because we did not have Tiffany's money.
Right.
But now I'm like, no one has a ring like me, and it's super cool.
Right,
And people
you want
ask me
something
about it all the
unique.
time. Yes.
Yeah.
And because we did it together, like our rings match each other, but are still like, unique to us as people. Like they match, but they're not exact. Yeah, highly recommend it. Have a jeweler make your rings.
I think it's
Just
awesome.
saying.
Yeah. So they get back in the limo and they're like driving to go meet his mom somewhere. And Reese is like, let's not tell anybody.
This is red flag number one for me.
Yes.
Which is like, I am really excited, but what if we don't tell your mom or anyone?
What if we never get married and I just keep this ring?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where in this movie, I feel like I realized as an adult, I was like, this entire movie, what they want it to be about, I don't know that it essentially succeeds, but this entire movie is about what we're supposed to want versus what the heart wants.
Right.
Like that is the thesis statement of this movie, because what we have just been presented with is what so many people would be like, this is the ideal life. She is a fashion designer. She has the career of her dreams. She got to pick her engagement ring from the Tiffany's floor and doesn't even have to give it back later in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like all these things are what materialism, capitalism, society would tell you is the thing that you should want. And she still has misgivings about it. Even though she's participating in it, she's still not sure. And I think this is the first time when we see her be like, fuck.
So I didn't know why she was like that until she like goes home and you find out she's married.
Right.
So I read it as like, oh, she didn't tell him she's married. Red flag number 2.
Right.
And
I've been there, Mikey. I've been there.
which is but like he's proposing and like they've been together for like a couple of years now.
8
and you're not
months.
gonna
8 months, Mikey. But yeah, I mean, still, I mean, you
that's
should
a quick
let
engagement.
It is,
Yeah.
Mikey.
It
Some
is,
people know.
yeah.
Some people just know, and they don't ghost people. But it's like,
Oh man.
it's but I mean, and honestly, like she should have told him like date 3. I'm still married. We've been separated for 7 years. We just haven't gone
Yes.
through the actual filing. I know
He
it's
won't
he
something I
sign the
refuses to
do.
sign the
papers.
papers.
Yes.
Right. But you can still start an uncontested divorce. I mean, I actually looked it up, and they actually address it later in the movie. It takes
They
longer.
do.
But
Yes.
but yeah, in the beginning of this movie,
I
was
bet it
driving me
takes
crazy.
less than 7 years.
Yeah, I think in the movie they say it takes 18 months. So yeah.
And it's one of those things where like he's got a butt ton of money.
Yeah.
If she had just told him, again, communication. If she had just told him day uno, like we're separated, he won't sign the papers, but for all intents and purposes, I'm single, he would have probably helped her get that uncontested divorce.
Right?
And like this movie wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have this problem.
Absolutely. I feel like if Mikey ever wanted a date and that was what he was told, it would make him want to marry her more.
Yes.
Because she isn't available for marriage, if that makes sense. Like she because
be
she
like-
can't marry Mikey. Mikey would be like, oh, you know what?
All
I
in.
take this as a challenge, and we are going to get married in 8 months, and then
Oh,
divorced
okay.
9 months later.
So I have a penchant for unavailable women. I mean, we could talk about it. I don't know if this is the right venue, but I mean,
It's definitely not the wrong one, Mikey.
I've dated like 4 electrocuted children. What about it?
I just got to find someone with that right spark, Paige.
okay. Back to the movie. She's also lying about her last name to
Yes,
him. The whole
Carmichael.
8
Everyone
months.
thinks it's Carmichael, but it's really smoother. So they do eventually get to Patrick Dempsey's mom or the mayor's like event
Right.
or whatever, and they they're having their pictures taken, and they've turned the ring around because they've decided not to say anything about it, right?
Why wouldn't you
Right.
just take it off?
Because you don't want to lose it.
Yeah, and it's like a $60,000 ring or whatever. So anyway, so she
Yeah.
walks up to Murphy Brown, and she's like, the mayor is like congratulating Reese on the show, and I heard it went great and all that stuff. And she's holding her hands, and she feels the ring under her hand,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh my God, you got engaged!" And like,
Yeah.
Well, a reporter asks Murphy Brown when she's walking into the
Yes.
event,
Yeah.
hey, there's rumors that your son's getting engaged. And she's like, I would be the first to know he's my son.
yeah.
So
Which
I have
is-
no comment on that.
I mean, I know for a fact my mom would say the same thing, and I probably,
Right.
I probably would have told my mom, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting engaged." You know, like
poor communication.
exactly.
Yes.
But anyway, so Murphy Brown turns the ring over, and she like in front of reporters and everything, and everyone sees it, and it's a huge story, right? I did
Yes.
love the montage of like spinning papers, like extra, extra. Patrick
Yeah.
Dempsey's taken. One of them said, "Sorry, ladies."
Yeah.
was
Well, and
hilarious.
they are collectively the most unflattering photos of Reese Witherspoon ever to be taken.
That's so funny.
Every single one is her like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And it's just bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So the next day, you kind of overhear her on the phone first before we fully get an establishing shot of where she is. And she's talking to her friend. Her friend's like, I had to find out from the newspapers, you bitch. And she was like, what could I do? And her friend's like, come meet us for coffee. And she's just like, no, I can't. I'm in Alabama.
Yeah. So in 12 hours, she flew to Alabama.
Yes. I was like, how'd she get a flight? Did she like private jet? Like what happened? No information.
No.
She's just in Alabama. And we see her drive up to a house. And because it had been a while since I'd seen the movie, I was like, oh, her parents. And then it was not her parents. She goes to her ex-husband's house first.
Yes. I mean, I sort of get this because she doesn't want to see anybody. She just wants to go to her ex-husband's house, get the divorce papers signed, and then get back to New York.
Yeah, I fell for this old switcheroo big time because he talked about, oh, I need to tell my parents before you come down, Patrick Dempsey. And so like I was like, oh, here's her parents out. And then he comes out, he's like, well, you won't. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
But I was like, yes. I think he's super hot.
Really?
Yes. Like between him and Patrick Dempsey, I'd choose him every time, personally.
I mean, okay.
I don't know why it was the case when I saw this in high school. It's the case now. But so we immediately meet her husband, who is not happy to see her.
No.
And we find out that he has identical dogs, where he had a dog, it died, and then he got a new dog that looks exactly like it and named it something different. She argues with her husband. I was going to say ex-husband, but he hasn't in the papers.
They are married this entire movie. Yeah.
They are married. So she argues with him on the porch. We find out that he keeps sending the divorce papers back and that she's been billed every time,
which is hilarious.
The best kind of petty. It's so great. And she is a bitch about it. Like,
she's real pissed. Yeah.
She is which there's a part of me that's like, I get it. That's expensive. And why won't he just sign it and whatever? But she is like, we've seen her the first 15, 20 minutes of this movie, she seems nice and kind and fun. And this is like turning on a dime. She's like, you stupid. And you're just like, whoa.
Wow. Yeah.
Whoa. It's like verbal abuse, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
But
it's almost like she's a bad person.
Talk to him, like, and also the whole conversation set up like they haven't talked in 7 years, so she's never called and been like, hey, why aren't you signing these divorce papers?
It is like that. Yeah, you're right, Mikey.
Yeah, I got the impression watching it now as a grown-up that she never discussed wanting a divorce. I got the impression that she just fucking left and then sent papers.
Yeah.
Which, if you're him, infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, just give me an answer. Tell me something. Yeah.
Communicate.
Yes.
Ghosting is only okay before commitment.
Right.
Yeah. When you have signed contracts, you don't get to just like peace out.
Yeah. That's why Mikey is single ladies.
Hey.
So,
I tried last year. I had my heart broken.
Do you want to get into that, Mikey?
I just say, I mean, I've been ghosted and I have ghosted other people, but like, you can't ghost a marriage.
No, you cannot ghost a marriage, Mikey.
You cannot ghost a marriage.
And ghosting is wrong. I will say that, but man, it's so easy to do and it's something I struggle with and it's a problem. I get it.
Did you know that you could just not text people back? Amazing.
Oh, man.
Great. So they argue on the porch. He is not going to sign the papers.
Yeah, he tells her, I'm not going to sign the papers, so you go visit your family because they haven't seen you in like 6 years or whatever.
Sure.
7 years.
Yeah.
And then he tries to lock her out of the house. And she gets right back in because she's the only one who knows where the hide key is and she won't tell him where it is.
So petty.
I sort of loved it, though, that he has a hiding key that he knows about but doesn't know where it is. And it's still there. And like, I thought that was really funny. That was like one of the parts of the movie I was like, I like this.
He's a good actor because I could really sense the frustration of like, he spent a lot of time looking for this key over the last 7 years. And he really conveyed that with his performance.
He did. Absolutely.
Because he's like in the middle of he's like, just tell me where the key is.
They continue to argue. She's like, you can't make me leave. Ha ha ha. And he's like, oh, I will. And calls the cops on her.
Yes.
Good move because this is now a domestic dispute.
Yes. which the cop does say when he gets there. But it turns out that the cop is one of their high school friends.
Yes. Yeah. Did you notice that when she hugs the sheriff or whatever, the cop or whatever, their faces are way too close together. It looks like
their
about
cheeks
to
are touching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like they're about to kiss, and they're like, "How you doing?" Like they're not talking about anything romantic. They're just like catching up, but they're like way too close. It made me very uncomfortable.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, it made me very uncomfortable.
I will say that if I had the opportunity to hug Reese Witherspoon,
I wouldn't, because I would have already stopped texting her.
Oh man, I would definitely make her show me that she's legally divorced first, though.
So she and the cop and her ex-husband, they establish that they're still married.
Yes.
At which point the officer is like, well, then it's her house too. Bye.
Yeah.
You know, like
She has
he's
every
gonna
right to
just
be
leave
here.
her there.
Yeah.
but this is the part I love.
Yeah.
Then Josh Lucas starts going through every bad thing she's ever done wrong. Like, shouldn't she be arrested for this? Shouldn't she be arrested for that? It's such a fun scene.
It
like
is.
that.
Yes. And they do find an outstanding warrant for her.
Yeah, because she stole the sheriff's mom's tractor and put it in a pond.
Yes.
And she does sound like, as a kid, she was as awful as she is now.
She is
she's
a
basically
nightmare
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
She killed a cat. She lied all the time.
She did not kill a cat. I have notes on that.
No, she did. The cat at the end of the movie is the ghost cat that she blew up with dynamite. We'll get there, Paige. I have thoughts.
What I'm trying to say is she shows all the pathology of a psychopath.
She
Yes.
shows not just pathology. She shows she is a psychopath.
She's got arson. She got head injuries from the lightning.
She's Dexter.
Yeah.
They didn't cover bedwetting, but if they had, triangle. It's yes.
Yeah, she is definitely murdered and will murder again.
Yeah, she killed Josh Lucas's spirit and she'll kill again.
Yes, she will.
And Patrick Dempsey's.
And Patrick Dempsey. So she calls her father to pick her up from jail.
And this is the first time her parents see her in like 7 years.
Yes.
Ugh.
And he brings her back home. And this is where we find out that she tried to get her parents to visit her in New York and they wouldn't.
Yeah. And she like bought them tickets. Like her mom gives her like the tickets back.
Right.
Which I guess you can buy just open-ended tickets to something. I didn't realize you could do that.
You used to be able to do that. So
Fair enough.
and they're paper tickets.
Yeah.
So this is a thing of the past where you can't really do this anymore. But you used to be able to just buy tickets ahead of time that you would then like redeem.
It's like buying a coupon or something, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just not, I mean, essentially, I want to think that she bought them the equivalent of airline miles, like a certain amount of airline miles.
I got you.
Yeah. But so we find out that they wouldn't come to visit her, even though they had, tickets and everything to do so, which I think kind of speaks volumes to their relationship. And her mom's like, well, you didn't come visit us, so we didn't come visit you.
A door swings both ways, which, no, it doesn't. This isn't a saloon, but whatever, Mom.
Communication. Again,
Yes.
I'm like, her mom says that the only reason she ever gave her was just it didn't suit, which is not enough information for why they're not coming to New York.
Well, she had to get it from somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It gave me the impression that they just don't think they're New York people, so they're not going to ever go visit New York. Like, I get that you don't want to like live in New York, but it's a fun place to visit. Like, travel and see the world.
Go
nerd.
for a weekend.
Yeah,
somebody
and
paid
see your
for
daughter who
tickets.
lives there.
So the next day, she's walking to the bank to get money, and she gets catcalled on the way there.
Yes,
by Ethan Embry, one of the unsung wonderful actors of the 90s.
Yes,
absolutely.
I love him.
And he's in a lot of stuff from that time period. But he's Bobby Ray. He's the actual Carmichael. Yeah.
Yeah. He catcalls her. They catch up, but it's pretty clear without them explicitly saying it within this first conversation that he's not necessarily there's not like an attraction there.
Right.
They
No.
pussyfoot around it. This conversation, they definitely imply that his girlfriend from high school is now a women's softball coach in Nashville.
Yes, because Nashville's a very welcoming place of all LGBTQ plus people. Yes, absolutely.
And that he is now single, which to me, living in Los Angeles, was like, closeted.
Yes.
Like, as a teenager, I didn't catch it. As an adult, I'm like, yes.
I mean, they come out and say it here in a bit, but yeah.
They do. Like a couple scenes later, you find out.
Yeah.
But they telegraph it way earlier. She then goes on to the bank where she meets Gail the snail.
Oh my God. I said the exact same thing to Natalie. I was like, hey, I hope she brought some salt with her in case the snail gets annoying.
Yeah, it's Marilyn Rice Cub, who is a saint and super nice in real life.
She's awesome. Everything I've seen her in, I've loved her in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's the bank teller. And what is amazing to me is she was not there the night before, hasn't like talked to Melanie yet, and she already knows that she and Jake are still married. Like, that's how fast word has
travels.
spread.
Yeah, it gets around.
She's married. She's married to the sheriff.
Oh, that's what it was. No, you're right. Yes, she's married to the sheriff.
But word is getting around just as fast.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
she takes her side for some reason.
Yes. And this is also where we find out that this town doesn't have an ATM.
Yeah, because she has to go to the bank. Yeah. I did love the security guard at the bank, like, is terrified of her and like
runs
leaves
from her. Yes.
Which we find out later, she sent a cat to murder him in the bank.
She accidentally exploded a bank like she's some sort of DB Cooper.
Yeah, her and Babyface Nelson were on a bank robbing spree.
Yeah.
She was the dynamite dame. Yeah.
She was the Joker in Dark Knight. She just sent explosives into the bank and cleaned up after.
Yeah.
She really is a psychopath.
She is, Mikey. Yes.
She is going to murder. Like, she is on track to murder people. If she didn't already when she exploded the bank.
They called this behavior escalation.
Yes. She's about to enter a berserker phase, and we're all going to be sorry.
Yes.
So at this point, she learns from Gail the snail that she still has a joint checking account, and she cleans it out, like literal theft, where she's just like, I have no moral issues taking a bunch of money that's not mine.
And they allude to the fact that it was like a shitload of money, like a lot.
She's able to
money.
redo the whole house in a day.
Yeah.
So here's where the plot of the movie breaks down for me, because he hides that he's successful the whole movie.
Yes.
But she stole like $40,000 from him in the opening act or whatever.
From his checking account.
Yeah.
Right.
From
So
his
like,
checking account.
did she not have questions about that?
She does. She asks him about it a bunch of times, implying that she thinks he's a drug dealer. And I was like, he's not Walter White. Like, what are you thinking?
I don't know, man. I would probably assume the same if you're living in Alabama and someone has their own plane and they're close to South America and they suddenly have an influx of cash. I definitely would assume cocaine running or something like that.
No,
Yeah.
that's not a
plane.
private jet. It's a single engine like Cessna. Let's all calm down.
That's exactly how you would transport
That's
drugs.
how you do it,
You're
Mikey.
totally right.
I'm not saying I've done the research and know exactly how much a Cessna would be to buy, but yeah, I'm saying that's how you do it.
But there's like a 2-prop plane. Like he's got like a Lake One single engine plane, like a little water hopper.
I know.
But those cost approximately $75,000.
Planes aren't cheap, Paige.
I was expecting more potentially, but even within the context of this story and the economics of where they're at, that's a lot of money.
It really is.
You know?
Yeah. And his house is pretty nice. I guess.
I'll get into his house later because I did some research on that house.
Sorry. His lake house, Mikey. Yeah, his lake house is pretty nice. And he parks his boat at the lake house. Like, there is no more opulent display of Southern wealth than having your plane parked at your dock at your lake house.
I will say that they had that house when they got married 7 years prior.
Yeah.
In
That's what's
in the
crazy.
90s.
Yes.
So maybe, and they're in very rural Alabama. So
Yes.
so that I can explain that away. But they were only teenagers, so it doesn't all make sense. But I get it.
Yeah.
We never meet his family. I'm gonna just assume he had some money in his family.
Well, maybe, you know how she moved to New York and changed her whole persona and doesn't talk about her family? Maybe he did the opposite. and moved to Alabama to like keep a low profile.
You mean like the witness protection plan because his dad was running guns for a Colombian cartel?
Well, we do meet his mom.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
And she
that's
owns
right.
the bar. Yeah.
So she's redone the entirety of his house and replaced everything in his fridge with what he calls chick food, and
Yeah.
we
Woman
find out
food.
is just light beer.
Yeah. Well, and he comes home to her like making dinner, like doing like the really like 1950s housewife domesticated kind of shit, and she's doing it to like throw it in his face or whatever. You know, you
Yeah,
don't really
like
want this
you
life.
want a wife?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm here.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, you can easily get rid of me, and so yeah.
He, at that point, it looks like he's going to sign the papers, but then he doesn't. And he tells her that he's got a hot date that night.
Yes.
And that he's basically just going to leave her at home. At which point we cut to his mother's bar,
Yeah.
where Melanie walks in. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's Melanie. And her, Target sweater that she's passing off as fancy. And
Excuse me, Paige. This sweater is actually me. I introduced it at my fall spring collection.
my favorite is them throwing shade at Jacqueline Smith.
I didn't know who that was. I was like, is that somebody? I don't know. I don't know what that is.
It's like department store fashion. But here's the thing, it's like that's a level of shade that only caters to somebody who's a weird liberal elite that would care. Like that is a joke purely for the people who are as trash as Melanie. like I'm watching it, I'm just like, oh, it's a nice sweater.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm loving this movie a lot more while I'm talking about it with you.
Same.
So so she runs into her friend Lurleen.
Lurleen. That's her name. We're not making that up.
That's her name. It's the fun sister from Ever After.
Yeah.
Which we should also do. And she's got a baby in a bar.
I do love that Reese Witherspoon like brings that up. She's like, why do you have a baby in a bar? Yeah. She's like, well, I got three others at home and this one's still on the tit, so I can just cart him anywhere. I was like, wow, Lurleen has seen some shit. Like,
here's what's insane. If she's out drinking and then breastfeeding, that kid's getting like, it's not fetal alcohol syndrome, but it's not far off.
It's just like, barely post-fetal alcohol syndrome.
It's not great.
Yeah. Here's another aspect of that conversation that you didn't think about. So it's her husband, the baby, and she's like, oh, I got 4 at home without child care.
Yeah, we don't. Well, I'm assuming there's a babysitter, but like we don't hear about them. We don't know for sure.
Yeah,
but if you're gonna hire a babysitter, leave the infant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 3 kids at home alone right now.
While their parents are drinking.
No.
Yeah, that's what we just learned. Yeah.
I always assumed in watching this movie, I was like, and the babysitter has the rest. But now that you say it, I'm like, why didn't she leave the baby?
Yeah.
Like,
There's currently a 6-year-old burning down the house for trying to make mac and cheese for his siblings. And that is the parents' fault.
That sheriff's a mandatory reporter and he didn't call CPS.
Oh,
man. Yeah.
This is where we meet Jake's date, Star.
Oh,
who's
wow.
only in this movie for 2 scenes
Yes.
and steals both of them. She's hilarious. She is the one who, when she sees Melanie's ring, is just like, oh my God, look at the size of that thing. Exactly like that.
Wow.
That was a
Paige.
perfect impression.
That was amazing. Joining us from Sweet Home, Alabama, the actress that played Star. That was an amazing impression.
Thank you. He also asks Star to get them drinks, and she's like, was that a martini? Or where she like doesn't understand that he wants her to get drinks for herself and him, where she's like buying Melanie a drink too. It's set up that Star is not very smart.
She's a kind, sweet person.
Right. This is also where we meet the rest of Melanie's friends, who are like a murderer's row of every Southern stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the girl with the baby, her husband
Right.
is like, he's a bigger guy with a mullet.
Yes.
That mullet
yes.
is super aggressive too. Like I felt bad
Yes.
for him
Yeah.
and the makeup artist.
And he didn't have the personality to fit that mullet.
Oh no, he was not
No.
Tiger Kinging around. No.
Thank you. Yes.
No, he was like super well spoken. He's like more well spoken to his wife. He's like,
a nice dude.
yeah, he's like, hey, Melanie, it's nice to see you. How you been? I got a good job. I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You know? He was just talking from the business in the front.
And she was the party in the back, the days behind him.
Oh, my God.
The party days of his past.
I think that's Lorraine's husband, isn't it? Lorraine?
Yeah, that's Lorraine's husband.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of mullets in the South, even the Deep South. I just want everyone out there to know this, that is a stereotype.
I will disagree with you because we went on, maybe not the Deep South, we went on our honeymoon to Virginia and went to Busch Gardens.
Oh, well, that's like, I mean, Busch Gardens is going to be a tourist attraction. You have no idea where those people are from.
I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm just saying.
No, but if you want to find one in the wild, you go to like Oklahoma. Like that's where you go to see a mullet.
This is true. But so the mulleted guy has like another friend that we don't really meet or talk to all that much, but he's still around.
Yeah.
Is he the one who sandwiches her?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the Melanie sandwich, Melanie taco.
If we saw the Melanie sandwich, I don't want to even dig into what the taco is.
She also says corn dog, which I couldn't even comprehend what that was.
Yes, no idea.
I guess they just wrap themselves around them and throw themselves in a deep fryer. Like what would that be?
That just sounds like a Tuesday. But so they're all at the bar playing pool, drinking, reminiscing. And this is where Melanie gets obscenely drunk.
She gets shit-faced, yeah.
And reveals that at one point, Jake got her pregnant.
Yes. In public, yeah. And that's the reason they got married.
Yeah,
right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the reason they got married. And then...
That is a stereotype in the South that is very true.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I got married super young, and it wasn't because I got anyone pregnant. People get married younger in the South, which is a mistake.
Yes. Yeah. And then half of those are probably pregnant.
Maybe,
I mean, it's not even just the South. Like, I grew up and went to Christian elementary school and high school. And so a ton of people that I went to high school with got married either right after or right after college. So they're like early 20s, all married.
Yeah.
I was an outlier for getting married much later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I'm like, the South gets a lot of shit for that, but it happens everywhere.
Yep.
So in order to take the spotlight off of herself and her embarrassment, she outs Bobby Ray.
Yes. In front of everybody.
Yes.
Which is terrible.
Yeah. It's the worst thing you can do to someone in the Deep South. Yeah.
Yes. And the movie treats it as like, oh, she embarrassed him. Like, no. She put his life in danger.
Yeah,
right.
Like, you don't understand. Like, people get dragged behind trucks for that shit.
Yes.
Like, how dare you? Like, this is a horrifying thing that she did. And like, when I was younger, didn't understand, thought it was a funny joke. And as an adult, I'm now horrified that she outs him.
Because not only is all of his friends just learned it all at once, and he'll like lose half of them at least, probably. Then it'll get back to his family.
Yeah.
Like it get back to his work. Like his whole life has just changed, and it's not his choice. And it was like what, and like the whole bar is, and then she starts saying other stuff, but that's the peak.
Oh, yeah.
She's being really mean to like everybody in that bar.
She is. And I did love when she does that. She's like, well, why don't you go to a gay bar, Billy Ray or Bobby Ray or whatever?
And like the music is like,
yeah. And then one of the guys is just like the only one laughing. And he walks up and puts his arm around him and he goes, what would you do at a gay bar? Because he just doesn't know that he's gay. And then he's slowly like, oh my God. And he like walks away. I thought that was pretty funny in like a horrible, horrible way. Like this movie makes fun of her outing him in this very awkward, silly way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she continues to say some mean stuff, but like that's the peak. Like they should have ended it with that, I think. Yeah. That was like thrown in the middle, but you're still processing that while she's saying other mean things to the other group of friends. Like, well, you had a bunch of kids and all this other crap, and you know, you're drinking with your kids at home, like alone, they could be dead, but whatever.
They could be struck by lightning. You know that happens around here. So she's popping off. She gets cut off at the bar. And essentially Jake is like, we're going to take her home, and makes Star follow them in, I think, his car or her car.
No,
or Melanie's car.
Yeah, like her husband throws Melanie in the truck because they're not going to let her drive. And then he gives her keys to Star, who is a saint and didn't do a lot of acting after this, but really should have been a huge star. And then like he's like, follow behind us. And then it cuts to Melanie throwing up all over his truck.
Well, he had to like physically force her into the car because she's like, I'm going to drive and you're a dick. Just get off. Don't touch me. Blah, blah, blah. And then like, he throws her in there and then she throws up on the thing. She really was dead set to drive.
Yeah, she was going to either kill herself or somebody else or at very least get a DUI. Yeah.
Right.
She's the worst.
Yeah, she's a bad person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they take her home. She sleeps it off. She gets up the next day and goes to see Bobby Ray to apologize.
Yes.
As she should.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely what she should do. And she goes to see him at the Carmichael Mansion.
Plantation.
Where they're blowing up fucking anvils. Yeah.
Where they're blowing up anvils and it's never addressed again later. And there's a weird reason for it. And he kind of like speed talks through it a couple minutes later. But like,
So I thought they had a Civil War cannon behind the bushes.
What it was is like they were trying to blow up anvils because when the North came through the South, they didn't want them to have any metallurgical capabilities, I guess. But all they did was just blow them up into the sky and they fell right back down. So like they explained it away. It was really
I just
dumb,
thought the
but-
grandfather was just like having fun.
I mean, he was.
You know what? That's a
clearly
better
was.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy grandfather blowing up anvils for shits and giggles is a better explanation than the one we get.
I did
Yeah, I
really
just-
not like how when she knocks on the door, the person that opens the door is a person of color, and it is implied that they made their money in cotton and all that implies, right?
Yes.
So I was like, okay, we're just gonna lean really hard into everything horrible the South has to offer. Thanks for that.
Well, it was an interesting juxtaposition because the heir to that family is the only gay person in town.
Yeah.
So he's self-aware of all the bad stereotypes going on, but they're still doing it. It was a very interesting way to take the film. I mean, yes, it looks, all of the Civil War imagery from here on out is a lot more problematic now than it was, I guess, in the early 90s. When did this come out?
It came out in 2002, Mikey.
Yeah.
So this stuff's only gotten more problematic since then, but it felt problematic back then.
It did feel problematic back then.
And so it's just really interesting that the only gay character is the heir to this plantation or whatever, and it put an interesting spin on it.
So she apologizes, although it's kind of a half-assed apology.
Yeah, definitely not as good of an apology. That like she needs to be crying and like
Yes.
But I mean, like sociopaths, they can't really feel emotion. So like, I think this is the best she has to offer. But yeah, she at least tries.
Yeah. So she leaves and then walks downtown where there's just some random street fair happening.
yes, Catfish Fest.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Is
right.
that what it is?
Yep.
Yes,
Catfish
I read the
Fest.
banner because I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Catfish Fest, where she meets up with Lurleen and apologizes to, or Lurlin.
Yeah.
And apologizes to Lurlin. And Lurlin does something insane where she says to her 4 children under the age of conservatively 6 and just says, y'all quiet down now. We're going to have a visit. And I was like, they're children.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be quiet. Like, what are you talking about? What insane thing did you just say? And then the children just sit there and quietly eat chili. And I'm like, what kids are these?
Well,
This is
Paige,
insane.
those kids had to go out real fast because they're left at home while their parents go to the bar every night.
They're like, I make better chili than this.
is
They
ridiculous.
made the chili. They definitely made the chili. The oldest, who's like 7, is like, it's okay, guys. We're just going to eat this chili. I brought Fritos. It's going to be
I'm
okay.
down to a pack a day. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, absolutely.
And at that street fair, as it goes into the night, they're drinking, dancing. All of her friends show back up.
The kids disappear.
The kids disappear.
Yeah, the 7-year-old takes them home. They're like, we got to get out of the sun. Little Timmy's going to get burned. Listen, someone has to be the adult here. I'm 7. I'll take them home.
I've already been
It's okay.
driving for 2 years.
I
It's
have an
fine.
early shift at the steel mill tomorrow morning, so I'll just take them home and we'll put them to bed, and then I'll see
Come
you
on,
guys.
brothers and sisters. We're going to go to Blockbuster on the way home, rent a video.
Oh, we forgot. So when she's leaving Bobby Ray's plantation, she gets caught by a reporter
Oh, from the New York Post.
from the New York Post.
But it's
or
not.
Who, it's not. It's Murphy Brown's assistant
Yeah.
pretending to be a reporter. But so Bobby Ray covers for her.
And pretends to be her cousin.
This is also the point where they're like, oh yeah, this plantation was on the Underground Railroad, but it's full of Civil War ghosts. And it's just, they give them all kinds of random information.
It's so weird.
But that's where we find out that she's being followed. So they're dancing, drinking. At the end of the night, all the men I guess she and Jake don't dance, but it looks like they want to dance.
They definitely do
Yes.
want to dance. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's like, why are they fighting it? Because everyone knows their business. And
Right. Y'all are so good together, even though for the last 7 years you were gone and it was all terrible and you treated him real bad.
And every time you're together, you end up yelling at each other. Yeah.
y'all have terrible communication skills, but we're going to treat fighting like a cute relationship quirk.
It's not fighting. Like, I want one friend to be like, she left you 7 years ago. This is ridiculous.
Yes.
Yes.
Never talk to her, sign the papers and run. Like, what are you doing?
That should have been the conversation on the water tower.
Yes.
Yes.
The entire town seems to be like, he's loved her forever and never stopped loving her, and we're going to all try and get them back together, which is insane.
That's not what friends do.
No, and friends would be like, hey man, maybe some therapy and, talk about why you were attracted to a sociopath. And
Absolutely. They definitely, okay, so everyone in this town hates both of them. That's the only way this makes sense, because they got together before she came back and they were like, listen, if she ever comes back, we have to do our best to get them back together, because then they'll both go to New York and then we are free of them.
It's because he became the most successful person in town.
yeah.
He's got to throw that in their face sometimes.
Yeah.
They're just sick of it.
so-
I'm sick of hearing about your lightning glass. Shut up, Perry.
Josh Lucas's character is such a good guy from like the jump. Now, he should have signed those he should have had some self-respect.
Yeah.
But he treats people really well from like the start through the finish of this movie. Better than anyone deserves to be treated.
Yeah. Oh, and at the nighttime at the fair is the first time she sees the glasses.
Yes, and she's like, these are real great glasses, and they just look like glasses. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever.
they're the most basic glasses. I have no idea where she's like, oh my God. Like, it's like she's like coming because of a glass, but like she's super into it.
You can get 12 of these glasses for $8.99 at Bed Bath & Beyond. Like, that's the style of glass that they are.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be like he became an artist and sold the lightning glass things.
Like
and
sculptures?
stuff. Yeah, well, or like did something with them and be like, it's such a rare thing.
Yeah.
But I was wrong.
You were wrong.
You were wrong. So they're all up on the water tower, dropping beer bottles down to murder people below who don't know that they're coming. And they're talking about, they're like, do you want to go bowling? And I was like, what's open? It's like, it's midnight or whatever.
I kind of like that the sheriff was like, you want to go arrest people?
Yes. And Bobby Ray's like, I know a place we could go. And they're like, no, homophobia. So while they're up murdering people with beer bottles from blunt force trauma, she goes to, there's like a dog graveyard, and she's having a very sad conversation with the dog she left behind.
It is honestly some
This
good
is where
work.
I cried.
Yeah, she does some
this
good
was-
work in this scene, man.
This
Yeah.
is the peak of emotionality we get in the film.
Yeah, I sobbed through this scene.
Yeah, it's so
when
sad.
I saw it for the first time and when I saw it last night.
Yep.
And Josh
Same.
Lucas saw her walk and he's like, I'm going to go home early. And he follows her to the graveyard.
Yes.
Mhm.
And cuts her a break
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
little bit.
absolutely.
Where like she's feeling terrible and he's like, hey, you had to do what you're going to do. Revealing himself to again be an amazing dude that she's just been a dick to.
Yeah.
It was even better than that. She's sobbing and she's saying, Bear, I'm so sorry I wasn't here. It's my fault that I left you and I wasn't here when you were dying. And I wish I could have been there and told you. And then like Josh Lucas interrupts. He's like, I told him it was my fault. It was my fault you left. And he knows you
Brutal.
didn't. And I was like, oh, that's such a nice thing to say.
No.
The dog knew she was a bitch and he covered her. Dogs always
man,
know.
it's real rough.
Rough indeed. They end up kissing.
Yes. No,
Which-
she ends up kissing him.
Cheater.
Yeah.
I would call that cheating.
Yeah, she is.
did.
But except that they're still married, which means that she's been cheating on him this whole time.
They were definitely legally separated at this point.
I
Yes,
think there's
yes,
I
yes.
think morally I would call this cheating too. Just
I would
because
call
they've
this
been
cheating.
separated for 7 years, it seems like he's been dating Star maybe on and off, or maybe that's just starting for a little while. And she's clearly engaged to somebody else. So I didn't realize that she was Mormon, but you know, it is what it is.
But
And so like it's
Josh
like a whole
Lucas,
thing.
to his credit, was like, you need to go home.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does. And we didn't say this, but he had signed the paperwork the night he took her home after she was shit-faced drunk. So like she can leave whenever she wants now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was like, man, she's terrible. I'm signing this.
Yeah, I dodged a bullet when you left. Jeez.
I lied to that dog.
Oh, man.
And then she's pissed. He sends her home. She is pissed at him for not kissing her back.
Yeah, well, and I feel like this is something that the movie portrays as a failing on his part, but is really him being respectful and drawing boundaries and being like, we are not together anymore.
You're
so
with
this
somebody
needs to
else.
Stop.
That huge fucking ring on your finger is for some other guy who also treats you amazingly.
Yes.
And last night I learned you're a terrible person.
Yes. Well,
We forgot to say, Josh Lucas, at this night when they're at the festival, walks up with Billy Ray, and he's like, no one's going to have a problem with Billy Ray hanging out with us, right? There would be
Bobby
no
Ray,
reason.
yeah.
There's no reason no one would treat Bobby Ray different, right, guys? And the whole group accepts him back, because that's the kind of stand-up guy Josh Lucas is.
He's
in this
awesome.
movie.
Yes. This is something that, and this again made me think of The Notebook. This is, I would say, a morally strong and good choice that he makes that The Notebook does not make.
Yeah, absolutely.
In The Notebook, she shows up engaged to somebody else, and, Ryan Gosling is just like, fuck that, let's fuck in the rain.
Yeah.
Josh Lucas is like, this is wrong, and this is going to cause more problems, so no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, he's a good dude.
He is a good dude.
It's a real bummer the way that she treats him in this movie.
I know. I feel bad for him because they end up together.
I mean, way to give it away, but like,
I mean, spoiler alert for a 18-year-old movie. This movie's so old it could vote. I don't care about spoiling it for people.
This is true. So we cut to the next day where she's leaving, and she's having a conversation with her mom that seems to come out of fucking nowhere, where her mom is like, leave. Get out of here.
We've all had enough of your shit, Reese. Get out.
Yeah, go away before you blow up our house. But she's essentially like, I don't want you to end up like me, which is the first time we've ever heard that sentiment from her mom. It's so out of left field.
Right.
Yes.
And then she's like, oh, because I wouldn't do your pageants. And it's this really manufactured emotional scene. And Reese Witherspoon's like, well, fine, I'm gone. And goes to say goodbye to her dad at the Civil War reenactment.
Oh, man.
This scene felt so weird because it felt like a better written movie would establish this kind of relationship with her mom throughout the film, and then they tried to throw it all in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That movie is Dumplin'.
That's such a good movie.
So she goes to say goodbye to her dad, and what she doesn't know is that her fiance, her Patrick Dempsey, has just arrived in Alabama and has now run into both Jake and Bobby Ray.
Yes.
And they're en route to the reenactment.
Also, Mikey, fun fact, I have definitely been to a Civil War reenactment.
Mikey, same.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been to Ren Fair. I imagine it's kind of similar.
It is a lot like Ren Fair, except it's a little bit more modern. And it really is just people cosplaying as Civil War soldiers. And then in every one I've been to, the Southern people get their asses kicked, and it's over. Everyone has cake and punch, and then they move on with their lives.
I mean, it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we do establish in this one that her father is playing a Southern soldier.
Yeah.
There's Confederate flags all over their house.
Yeah.
And when she arrives at the battlefield, he's, quote, about to surrender. So
Yes.
like they are playing it historically accurate. It's just weird that he still wants to be a Confederate soldier, but
I love when she's walking through the fallen Confederate soldiers.
Yes.
And she's like calling for her dad, and one of them sits up and goes, "Who are you looking for?" And then she gives her dad's name, and he's like, "5th Company," and then all of the dead men just like
they all
sit
rise
up.
from the dead.
Yeah. and then they're like, "We're looking for whoever," and then one of them goes, "Oh, he's about to surrender," and then she goes, "Thanks," and then they salute her, and then immediately
they
all of them
die
just
again.
fall down dead again. I really did love portions of this movie. Yeah, I thought that was very funny.
I feel like with a different main character, this is a great movie.
Yeah, if your main character is on a sociopath, I'm on board for it. Yeah. Oh, and I also love that Patrick Dempsey thinks that her husband is her actual cousin because
Yes.
they meet on the steps of the Carmichael plantation, and they just sort of continue the lie that Bobby Ray is her cousin, and then also so is Jake, or whatever his name is, the husband.
My favorite is when Bobby Ray meets him at the door and he just goes, "What's going on?"
Oh yeah, because
unlike anyone else in this movie, Bobby Ray is giving Patrick Dempsey the respect he deserves for being an attractive, available man.
Well, I like that
yes.
Josh Lucas walks up and he's like, "Oh, Bobby Ray, is this like a new friend?"
Yeah.
He's like super He's so accepting. He's such a good guy.
He's even like, "Are you here to see Bobby Ray?" Which I think, I don't know, but I think in 2002 they wanted it to play like he was sort of like, oh, look at this effeminate dude. But to me, in this, like 18 years later, it feels like he is just accepting of Bobby Ray's
being
lifestyle.
An awesome friend.
Yeah, he's being an awesome guy. Like, oh, great. You're actually getting out there and meeting people. This is great, Bobby Ray. Yeah.
That's how I read it. I'm reading it like that just because of the scene
too.
At Catfish where he was like, "We're all accepting Bobby Ray or I'm going to kick some ass."
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
So he's driving Patrick Dempsey to the reenactment and he's telling all these stories about Melanie as a child.
Which are insanity, by the way.
They're insanity. This is where we find out about the cat and the dynamite. And that she essentially blew up the bank while trying to murder a cat. And
they try to explain that away by saying...
Mercy kill a cat.
Exactly.
Mercy kill a cat.
They explain it away by like, don't worry, it was going to die of cancer. So it doesn't matter that we were going to blow it to bits with dynamite. The mental gymnastics you have to get to that, to me, is insane.
Well, for a sociopath.
Well, that's true.
I think
yeah.
She just wanted to put dynamite on a cat, and that cat was available and had cancer. The best part is he reveals that people still see the cat around.
Yes, it's a ghost cat.
I have notes about later. But so he's telling all these stories, and Patrick Dempsey's like, "Oh, it's fun." Like hearing them like a normal person, being like, "What a nightmare!"
Yeah.
Like, who is this terrible person?
I think this is what establishes his doubts that he should not marry this person. And I think he sees a bunch of them, and when what happens, and he's like, "Cool, I'm out of here." Like, that makes sense to me.
I appreciate that he respects her choice.
Yes, me
but
too.
I think he is also just like, "Whoo!
Oh, thank fuck.
Dodged that dynamite."
Oh my God. I could have been the cat.
Have fun jumping on that grenade, Josh Lucas.
Yeah, I could have been the cat. So, like, I'm fine with this.
Yes. So he arrives at the reenactment, realizes that the nightmare person that Josh Lucas has been talking about is the woman he's about to marry, and he knows nothing about her because it's all a house of lies.
Because she's not a Carmichael, she's a Smooter.
She's a Smooter.
Well, and she's actually not that, because she's a Perry, because she's married to the guy who drove him there. Also, I guess Patrick Dempsey just rode with Reese, but like Jake leaves him there, like, and he drove him there. So like
he leaves him there, and then Reese Witherspoon also leaves him there because that's her dad finds him walking down the highway.
Oh my God!
So they just left him.
Oh my God! These are horrible people.
Well, I figured Patrick Dempsey got mad because she was like, "I lied about my last name. I lied about I was married. I lied about this."
My favorite is when he's like, "You married your cousin?"
So I'd walk home too. I'd be like, "I don't want to see you. I wouldn't ride with her back either."
And this is pre-Uber. I get that.
So her father eventually picks him up off the side of the road and brings him home. By the time he gets home, he's like, "I'm willing to forgive every million lies that you've told me, and let's still get married, even though that's a terrible idea." Yeah.
And I'm going to overlook your cat murder phase.
Yeah. And your arson phase and your bedwetting phase and your documented head injuries.
Yes.
She's an only daughter now because she murdered her sister.
So he then talks to his mother, and his mom is like, "I fucking told you." And he's like, "No, she's really nice though. Please be nice to her." Reese Witherspoon's character does briefly go back to New York.
Yes.
It doesn't say that she does, but she does.
She clearly does, because she meets her friends in New York. Yeah.
Right. And at that point, they start planning the wedding to have the wedding in Alabama at the Carmichael plantation.
Right.
Which was such a weird choice.
It's a plot device to get her back to Alabama to have everything come to a crescendo at the wedding.
Yeah.
So how much time elapsed? Because in the movie when I was watching it felt like they got married like the next week.
It did feel very fast.
It did feel like that. Basically, as soon as they could get everything together, it happens.
Yeah.
She then goes back to Alabama with her 2 ridiculous media elite stereotypes of friends. It's like, oh, you have a British sexually positive model and a black gay friend?
Yes.
Great.
It's called New York Page, okay?
Yeah, have you been there? Yeah.
I have. And they are essentially, she picks them up at the airport where they see the ad for Deep South Glass.
Yeah, and she's all like, I'm seeing this everywhere. Like, we should go check this place out. It's really cute.
So they go, and she sees the plane outside and finally realizes this is where all the money came from.
Yeah.
And it's not just a glass store. It's like Glasser Barrel. It's like a Crackle Barrel for glass.
Glasser Barrel?
So it reminds me so much of there's a place near where my husband and I got married called the Apple Farm. And it is like a hotel, gift shop, restaurant.
Yes.
It's like an experience. Like you would specifically go there.
Yeah,
for
this
that.
is a glass-blowing B&B themed place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's a resort. Like no
Also-
wonder he's fucking rich.
How far away? It's on the same lake. He's flying from one half of the lake to the other?
It's in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's further
So-
away.
is it?
Yeah.
Yes, because that's why he says I've been spending a lot of time up in Tuscaloosa because he owns a business there.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole thing.
Man,
And so-
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. But so this is where we find out like this is where the money came from.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to give us this kind of like nostalgia vibe for them where he's like creating art and building himself up as a person using a thing that is tied to their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tells her because she runs into him there and the dog, and he goes in this great Gatsby-esque speech about when you left. You lost the baby and you left and you wanted more, and I finally realized the baby would have been your only adventure, and we deserved many adventures.
Yeah.
So I dedicated my life to being the kind of guy I felt you deserved, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes, which also made me cry because I was just like, he's so great and she's so horrible. Just like
He could do so much better. Yeah.
I'm right here.
I really connected with Josh Lucas's character. I
Yes.
was like, this guy's such a good guy.
Yeah.
He's so great. But regardless of this wonderful, heartfelt speech about somebody who has spent their life working towards being the person deserving of this psychopath, she decides to go forward with the wedding anyway.
I know.
I will say, he never communicated any of this the 9 times she sent the divorce papers to
over
him.
7 years. And she's only been dating this guy for 8 months. So
You'd think they would
you
have
know.
a conversation about, I'm trying to be the kind of guy you deserve. I'm
Yes.
trying to build my life up. I want you back. Like, it seems like none of those conversations ever happened.
No.
None
Like,
of them.
No one got drunk and left a weird voicemail at 3 a.m. Like, what happened?
Which, I mean, I do know Facebook wasn't around at the time.
Right.
So this is pre-Facebook.
You couldn't stalk
but I
them
feel
online.
like modern
Right.
day he'd be stalking her online. Like, it'd be a whole crazy thing.
Like she would be stalking them to the point where like in Patrick Dempsey's like suggested friends, like he would start showing up because he's been to
Isn't
his
that the
profile so many
weirdest?
times. Like my
It's
my
so
ex-girlfriend
crazy.
shows up in my current girlfriend's like suggested friends all the time because I'm sure she's stalking us, which is hilarious.
That is crazy.
Oh, and you find out he went to New York to get her, but decided not to because she was on her adventure, and that's when he decided he needed to make a better life.
Yeah, it's brute. He is so great in this story that it makes me sadder that they end up together.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. He has a lifelong punishment of being with her. Like it's horrible.
Yeah, the wedding happens, or rather, Murphy Brown comes to Alabama.
Yes.
And instantly hates it.
Well,
It's just like,
I mean-
deep fried what? No, thank you.
Yeah, I get it.
But I
though.
will say the food is very good.
It's also very fattening and gross, but amazing. Like I love it. Like Southern food's pretty intense.
When we go to Texas, Jake orders all the food that we can't get here, and so like fried catfish, and then he ate like a crawfish pie.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I love crawfish.
See, I was like, these are weird sea bugs, and I'm like not here for it.
Paige, no shit. I had a crawfish omelet yesterday.
Holy shit, Mikey. Wow.
At a restaurant or at your house?
At a restaurant.
He went down to the creek and got some crawfish and made his own.
Cool, because I was like, it's coronavirus. Are you just raising them in a tank? Like, what's happening?
If I'm going to go do a pandemic, I'm going to need one of the crawdads to come with me.
Oh, wow.
Gotta keep them separated.
I don't like any of that shit, but I will put down some deep fried Oreos, man.
Oh, deep fried
They're
Oreos
so
are
good.
so good. So anyway, Candace Bergen, she is not having it. She wants to go home as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So the wedding happens basically the day of, everyone's there. And while the wedding is going on, Josh Lucas is going out to make more glass, which I appreciate because I feel like at that point in the movie, it means that his life and his plan doesn't stop because she doesn't want to be a part of it.
No, he's moving on with his life. Yeah.
He got closure from that visit.
I love it. He's like, okay, cool. She's going to get married. His mother is at the wedding. Like she was invited and he just didn't want to go. So he's now, continuing his life. He's a business owner. He's got shit to do.
His mom talks to him about something, like implies like you should go stop the wedding. He's like, no, that's ridiculous.
And it is ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go do this.
What he said is she made her choice, which is basically like he's respecting her choice in this matter. And like the movie wants you to think like, no, don't stop the wedding. But I'm like, in a real relationship, the restraint to respect someone's choice when it doesn't line up with what you want is the most adult, mature thing that happens in this movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've struggled with that. So I mean, like,
it is tough. It's tough for everybody.
It is.
Especially the movie implies that he's been fighting to get her back for 7 years.
Yeah.
And for him to be like, it's over.
I think he did a good job of getting closure because of how terrible she is throughout her visit. But when at the Civil War battlefield, he tells Patrick Dempsey, you're in love with a different woman I'm in love with.
Yeah.
And that's when he leaves.
We're in love with two different women. Yeah.
That's a mic drop, kind of like cold, awesome burn that I've ever heard one. And I think that's when he's like, she's not even the same person. I've been doing this for nothing.
Yes.
But I mean, he hasn't been doing it for nothing. He's been building a life for himself too.
Well,
and
no,
he's going to continue building that life, which I think is great.
Yeah.
He's worked very hard. His motivation may have been to win his wife back, but he realizes that she's no longer the person he fell in love with. It's time to move on, and it's great. Like,
it was such a good way to put it. There wasn't no cliche fist fight between them or anything like that, which I liked.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. The wedding happens, and she stops the wedding. She's like, I can't do this.
No, the lawyer does.
Oh, no, you're right. The lawyer runs in because she's still married. She didn't sign the papers.
Yeah.
He signed the papers. She did
Yes.
not. At that point, she could just sign the papers.
Yes. So
Like,
she's
could.
like, does anybody have a pen? And the whole wedding is like, blah, 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 blah. And then Josh Lucas's mom gives her a pen.
Yeah. And then she says, things like this happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she essentially stops the wedding. And my favorite part is Patrick Dempsey being like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Great. Have fun.
Yeah.
Like, bye.
Well, she tells him, she's like, you don't want to marry me. And he's like, I don't. And she's like, definitely not.
I've got dynamite waiting back at the hotel suite.
And Mikey, when someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
And she tells him and he believes her and he leaves. And I do love that Murphy Brown is like, are you going to let her treat you like this and leave you standing at the altar? And he's like, Mom, I know her a lot better than you do. And yes, I definitely am.
A mom would be absolutely pissed.
Absolutely.
I mean, she does call her a bitch. And I mean, granted, that's a really intense moment. But like, it still tries to portray Murphy Brown as the villain. But like, if anybody's mom of a person who gets left at the altar would be super pissed.
Well, she also, they paid for this wedding, which I have some figures on.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot
it is
wait. Yeah.
Not cheap. But also, everything she says in that speech to her of like, you're a lying, manipulative bitch. I'm like, yes, she is.
Guilty on all three counts.
We're portraying you as the villain, but she is the only one speaking truth to the situation. She's the only one saying, you have manipulated people and you are treating people badly, which is the reality. And the movie just kind of wants you to ignore it. But she's the only one that's like, no one else is going to say it. You're awful.
Yeah.
Right. And you could just picture the scene in your mind of them back in New York and Murphy Brown being like, you dodged a huge bullet.
Yes.
That woman's insane.
Yes.
But all of those things are true, Mikey. He did dodge a bullet, and she's insane. But Patrick Dempsey has a type. Like, he definitely loves a good Southern belle, but we'll get there because his story's not over.
His story's not over. So Melanie runs out to the beach where Jake is setting up lightning rods to murder them again.
Hang on one second, Paige, because it starts to rain on the wedding and everyone's running away.
Yes.
And then we get this shot of like Reese Witherspoon running away, but she like grabs her dress and she then yells, "Hey, friends of the bride, stay here. I'm going to go get the groom." And you're like, if Patrick Dempsey's still like running away, he's like, what the fuck, man? Like, that's like, what? This is my wedding too. This is horrible.
Paid for this.
I paid for this party you're about to have at my expense. This is horrible.
Yes.
Anyway, but then she does go to get her husband. Yeah.
She goes to get her husband in the middle of a lightning storm surrounded by metal rods. And
Yep.
he basically is like, what did you want to marry me for? So I can kiss you whenever I want.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
And I may have cried during that time. Yeah, I may have cried, even though she's a horrible person.
And she's like, you're the first person I ever kissed. And I was like, don't marry the first person you kiss.
No.
Well, she circled back.
That's true. She kissed people in between.
That's 7 years. That's a lot.
That's a lot of people to kiss.
We don't know what happened in New York, but
she might have also kissed Bobby Ray as cover sometimes.
That's true.
Know.
That is true.
They end up making out in the rain, and then they come back to the bar where they have essentially like a country reception, and they replace the cake topper with Rock'em Sock'em Robots because fighting is cute?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Because in the South, domestic abuse is funny, which it's not. That's not. But that's what they want you to think by this.
Probably because Bobby Ray's like, I don't know if this is a great idea, but I'm at least going to make a really funny joke to myself about this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to crush at this reception. Then the movie ends, and if you have to watch through the credits because it basically shows that what happens after is they go back to New York.
Yes.
He opens a storefront for his glass. She gets to have her designer dream, and then they have a baby.
Yeah.
I missed all that.
What?
You didn't watch the credits?
No, I just thought they kissed at the reception. It was like, it was over. And I was like,
no.
oh, okay.
No, so as you watch the credits, it's told through like photos.
Yeah.
Where you find out that like Bobby Ray and her black gay friend hook up.
Yep.
And Patrick Dempsey marries a Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Okay. So Vanderbilt's from Nashville. Like our biggest university is named after Vanderbilt. So like he marries into the Vanderbilt family, which is like would be exactly what Murphy Brown wants because that's like a rich political alliance kind of a thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's super into Southerners, so he's into it.
Yep. And it shows actually. So it shows that they open the storefront and that they have a baby, and it actually shows the baby growing up to at least I would say like four
or
where they
five,
have like a little girl in front of his store. So implying that like they go back to New York and they both get to have their dream.
Yeah, they make it at least until the financial collapse. And then we get no photos after that. So I assume that it just didn't go well after that. But until 2007, 2008, things were great.
That's hilarious.
So I did a lot of insane calculations about the realities of this movie.
I love this.
I'm so excited about this.
The first one, so the cat that she strapped dynamite to, they mention in the story that she's approximately 10 when that happens, which means that it's been 15 years since.
Yeah.
And that the cat had cancer prior. So the cat wasn't like new. It was ostensibly an older cat.
It's an old kitty. Yeah.
Right.
But people mention that they've seen that cat around and alive. So I'm here to tell you that the average lifespan of an indoor cat is 12 to 15 years. And the average lifespan of an outdoor cat is 6 to 7 years. So there's no way that cat is still alive. It is a ghost cat.
Yeah, when you see the cat at the end, it's definitely a ghost cat. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, it'd be like a 30-year-old cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's talk about her being a fashion designer. We kind of mentioned it. Did we mention it in the episode or before the episode started?
I know you and I were talking about it. I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in the episode. We talked about it being her show and stuff. Yeah.
So she's been gone for 7 years. It's never established that she went to design school or anything before that. So we have to, in theory, include design school in that 7 years. The idea that she at 25 would already be showing at New York Fashion Week out of nowhere is insane. She'd be like the most successful designer ever. She'd be like revolutionary wonderkind. The other thing that I wanted to note, so a fashion designer's salaries, top of the line, not famous, but like working, is around 100,000. It's established that she's basically famous.
Yeah.
So I would bump that a bit. But in New York, that's not as much money as you'd think.
No, it's not.
So she is either being heavily sugar daddied or living far beyond her means in New York. Now, I did look at this movie is based, it mentions that it's Pigeon Creek / Greenville, Alabama, which is a real place.
Okay.
So I looked up the cost of like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, essentially lake house.
Oh my God, you like dug into this. I love it.
I dug into it.
Oh my God.
There's nothing available in Pigeon Creek, Greenville right now. But in nearby cities, a house of this size is approximately $160,000.
Oh my God.
Because it is pretty rural.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's get into the wedding.
Okay.
So, and this is, I planned a wedding just this past year. I'm well aware of what this kind of shit costs, unfortunately.
Right.
So a wedding they established that it's 500 people, and almost all of them are from out of town.
Yeah.
Because none of her like local friends are at that wedding. Like a handful of them are, but that's it.
Right.
So it's essentially 500 people from New York. So a wedding for 500 people would cost approximately $40,000 in catering alone.
Oh my God.
Approximately $5,000 to $10,000 in alcohol, $2,000 in cake, and that's only because they didn't use fondant. That could go all the way up to $5,000 in cake.
You literally dug into like how much it would be for this specific cake. That's amazing.
Here's what I also did is I looked at like what my wedding cost and then multiplied, and I had what I would call a pretty affordable wedding.
Sure.
And so I was kind of like, you know, blowing it way out of proportion of like, okay, if there were this many people, it'd be insane. So that's not counting any travel or lodging costs, which would have been in the thousands, and they probably would have covered for almost all those guests because they're fancy political people.
Right.
Her dress, assuming that she made it herself, would be about $500 for the cost of materials. But if she purchased it with a rush alteration, because it's only been about a month, that's a $3,000 dress minimum with almost as much in alterations.
Oh my God.
Her dress is probably about $10,000. This wedding very easily costs the same or more than an average cost of a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in this town.
Oh my God. Oh
she
my God.
effectively, when she leaves him at the altar, is just like, fuck a house. Like
Yeah.
that is the amount of money that she's just yeeting into the sun.
Oh
she's
my
a
God.
bad person.
Yeah, she's a horrible individual. Murphy Brown is absolutely right to be mad at her. Yes.
Yes, 100%.
One of the pictures in the after credits was Josh Lucas writing a check with his new business's money to cover the wedding.
That should have been. That would have been amazing. Yeah. How much was the cake?
At my wedding, I had 6 different kinds of cake because it was cheaper.
Really?
Oh.
So the place where we got married had a famous bakery attached, and so you had to use their cake.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, what's the cost if we like stack it like the tiers? And she was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's like, you know, it was something like $1,000, you know, to stack it. And I was like, what if we just ordered 6 cakes that like enough cake to serve this many people? And she was just like, oh, that's included in your catering.
Okay. Well, we're doing that. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, can I choose different flavors? She was like, yeah, as many flavors as you want. So I had 6 different flavors of cake.
That's awesome.
For
Oh, nice.
free. $3.99. I was so excited. I was just like,
I'd have been the guy at the table like, hey, where are the brownies?
I did have German chocolate cake.
Ooh, okay.
And carrot,
I
white
love
chocolate
carrot cake.
raspberry, toffee crunch,
Oh.
and pink champagne.
Yeah, by the way, Paige, thank you so much for the invite to that. That was amazing. It was so much fun that we got to go to that wedding. You jerk. I hate you. Do you guys want to talk box office?
Before we do that, let's would you date either of these people? and do we think they're still together?
Absolutely not would I date her. No, never. Do I think they're still together? Maybe. Maybe because of codependency issues they're still together, but they should not be together.
I think they're together and they fight all the time.
Yeah.
I would 100% date Josh Lucas.
Well, but that's because the person who's romantically available for you is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he could be available for you too.
I mean, that's true.
I'm not enforcing any heteronormative stereotypes. Sure. You can pick whoever you want.
Well, then I would absolutely date either of the two male leads because they're both amazing individuals.
Yes.
I think this is a rare romantic comedy where the male characters are like decent people.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I was into dudes, yeah, totally. If it was Reese Witherspoon, like if I would hope I would not date her, but I make some poor relationships.
I was about to say, Mikey, you definitely would.
I would like to say on paper, definitely not.
Oh man!
And like I said, I do think they're still together and constantly fighting in an unhealthy, toxic relationship.
Yeah, I definitely think they're still together because then they brought a kid into it.
Yeah,
yeah. So now you can't leave.
Yeah, now you can't leave, and they have all this money, so it'd be like, well, we don't want to lose money on the divorce. I mean, like it's probably really complicated.
She's the kind of woman that says to her friends, "Get divorced? Are you kidding? I love my house." Like she says those kind of things to her friends.
But also, here's the thing: she paid for. She also has money in this scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So she also probably paid for that house.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if Jake and I ever get divorced, Jake is suddenly going to be way richer.
Oh man.
I think that relationship ends with like Josh Lucas dying in a mysterious plane crash.
You mean as he's running drugs down to South America? Yes.
Yeah.
No, she definitely will sabotage the plane with like, oh, it blew up. Somebody put dynamite on the plane.
Yeah, somebody fed him to tigers. I don't know how it happened.
All right, let's talk box office.
Let's do it.
So this is a box office hit, clearly. But what do you guys think? What do you think the production budget of this movie was?
I think this movie cost about $10 million to make.
Oof. Mikey,
I'm gonna say 15.
Okay, it was a $38 million production budget.
What?
Yeah.
Where is that money? It's not on the screen.
It's just with Reese Witherspoon?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's just cost of people being in it.
Yeah,
probably.
I think that was it too, because it did have a lot of big name people. I mean, McDreamy, come on. But it came out September 27th, 2002, and it was the number one movie it came out. Domestically that weekend, it made $35 million. Which is
so it was a super hit.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for early 2000s. It beat The Tuxedo, Barbershop, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. That was number 4, but had been in the theaters for 24 weeks. That movie was like a sleeper crazy hit.
That movie is the second grossing highest romantic comedy of all time.
Yes.
Big Fat Greek Wedding was in theaters for over a year.
Yeah.
And I know this because it was a huge sleeper hit. My aunt got married and we went and saw it for her bachelorette party.
What?
Nice.
Because I was like
amazing.
15 at the time. Yeah. We should definitely do that movie.
Yes, I love that movie.
I'm game. Number 5 was The Banger Sisters, then The Four Feathers, 1 Hour Photo, Ballistic, Signs, Swim Fan, and Trapped were all the top 10 movies.
Swim Fan.
I know, right? So it was number 2 at the box office the next 3 weeks. So for its first month, it was either number 1 or number 2 at the box office.
That's pretty good.
So total,
that's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. Total domestic, it made 120 million, and then worldwide, it made 182 million. So it made a lot of money. Yeah.
Now that we've talked about it, do we think it's a good movie?
No,
No.
absolutely not. It sets up horrible expectations for what a man should have to put up with to have a wife.
Yes.
It's like a
agreed.
reverse Disney film.
It is very much the like, if you could put a phrase into this movie, it would be, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And that is, if anyone ever says that to you, you should break up with them. Like, that is the biggest red flag ever. But that is like Reese Witherspoon's mentality this whole movie.
Yeah, this is Facebook meme the movie.
Yes.
I agree. I love romantic comedies, which is why I'm on this podcast, but I didn't super enjoy this one.
I hate romantic comedies, and this movie is perfectly in line with why I don't like them.
If this movie was as good throughout as it was with the dead dog scene, if every part of it was as well written, I think it would have been a good movie.
Here's what's wild. I think there are Hallmark movies that do the same thing better, and that's bad. That's not good.
Yeah, there are movies
That's a
that
bad
are made.
thing.
There are movies that are made for $160,000 that are better than this. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so this week we watched Sweet Home Alabama. What are we watching next week?
Next week we are watching Pretty Woman.
Yeah, the 1990 hit with Richard Gere and Julia
Roberts.
What is wrong with you?
How did you remember Richard Gere first?
All I could think was Mary Poppins. I was thinking Julia Andrews.
What?
It's Julia Roberts. I'm sorry.
That movie is a completely different movie with Julie Andrews in it.
Oh.
Speaking of which, we should watch Princess Diaries. But
I am game for that. Yes.
Yes.
I've also never seen Pretty Woman.
I had never seen it either. So this was my first time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, we will definitely have some thoughts because it is the quintessential 90s movie and all that entails. Yeah.
Yes. She also lived in the same neighborhood I lived when I first moved to Hollywood. So I have some neighborhood notes as well.
Oh, excellent. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well, check out that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to this, you probably already know that Mikey and I are on a different podcast called The Horror Virgin. So check out that while we watch and break down horror movies. And Paige, you want to tell them where you're from?
Sure. You're probably listening to this because you've heard me on Cult Podcast, which you can find on all streaming platforms and social media.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging us in this little. We wanted to watch something not about murdery stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a fun crossover episode for Cult Podcast, and we're like, imagine if we did this all the time and didn't have to talk about dead people.
Just people that are dead inside, like Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, and Josh Lucas after being married to her for 7 years.
Oh my God, yeah. All right, guys, we'll see you next week or next episode, really, because we're dropping 5 at once. So enjoy the binge, baby.
All right.
Bye.
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 La 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 la.